There's something sort of fascinating happening with the Ukraine war. And I'm not talking about the actual on-the-ground fighting. I'm talking about the perception of Ukraine in the Ukraine war. So one of the things that started pretty early in the Ukraine versus Russia war is this bizarre left-right split that didn't seem to mirror reality at the beginning. At the very beginning, there was a lot of talk on the right about how Russia was in a religious state where Ukraine was irreligious. Well, by all available polling, the opposite was true. Far more people in Ukraine go to church on average than people in Russia. They go to church far more frequently. Ukraine is a far more socially conservative country than Russia in a lot of ways, despite Vladimir Putin's attempts to be more socially conservative from the top down. It's a far more secular, atheistic state is Russia than Ukraine. But the presumption on the part of Americans was the opposite. For a lot of Americans, Ukraine, because it was immediately adopted by the Democratic Party and because Joe Biden decided to make it his sort of cause on the international stage, immediately the assumption was on the left that Ukraine had to be some sort of San Francisco on the Volga, which is absurd. I mean, that it's not true. But very quickly, you know what Ukraine learned? What Ukraine learned is that they actually were able to get left-wing support by pandering exactly to this. It's a truly astonishing thing. So, for example, Volodymyr Zelensky, he goes to the UN and he's trying to make a pitch for further funding. And he makes the usual pitch. He starts off by talking about how Russia is going to cross NATO's borders and it's going to engage in mass destruction. This is exactly what you would expect to hear from a country that is in the middle of a war. But then he moves beyond that. So here's Zelensky's original pitch, which is that it's really all about Russia and the battle between Russia and Ukraine for territorial integrity and the rest.
Terrorists have no right to hold nuclear weapons. No right. But truly, not the nukes are the scariest now. While nukes remain in place, the mass destruction is gaining its momentum. The aggressor is weaponizing many other things, and those things are used not only against our country, but against all of yours as well.
Okay, so you can agree with this case, you can disagree with this case. But Zelensky then spent an enormous amount of his speech not talking about the war that has killed hundreds of thousands of people in Ukraine. Instead, he spent an enormous amount of his speech talking about climate change. I have a question. Do you think the people of Ukraine give a good bleep about climate change at this point? Right now, they have bombs falling in their cities. They're in the midst of the biggest continental war in Europe since World War II. And Volodymyr Zelensky is over the gun talking about climate change. Why is he doing that? Why is he doing that? Because if you talk about climate change, then this is like the golden ticket to left-wing money. It's what earns you support from the left. If you talk about their favored topics, the same way that Howard Stern buys a dispensation, a left-wing papal dispensation, by talking left-wing talk, Volodymyr Zelensky has realized that he can do the exact same thing. That the bizarre split between right and left over the assumed politics of Russia versus Ukraine, if he actually plays into that, he can get Joe Biden to sign him more cash and he can get the left-wing media to support him in a higher order. Vladimir Putin has called the U.S. dollar's drop in dominance objective and irreversible. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa have formally agreed to use local currencies in trade instead of the United States dollar. Is that the first shoe to fall? I don't know, but one thing I do know is that it is smart to diversify. Investors and savers are looking to harness the power of physical gold held in a tax-sheltered IRA. I buy gold from Birch Gold. I trust them to help me diversify my savings. You can protect your IRA or 401k by diversifying with gold from Birch Gold. As the U.S. dollar continues to receive pressure from foreign countries, digital currencies, and central banks, arm yourself with information on how to protect your savings. Text BEN to 989898. They'll send you a free info kit on gold. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, thousands of happy customers, countless 5-star reviews, I trust Birch Gold to help you diversify into gold. If a central bank digital currency would become a reality, well, it'd be nice to have some gold to depend upon. Again, text BEN to 989898. I don't like having all of my assets subject to the whims of central bankers. You probably shouldn't either. Text BEN to 989898. Ask all your questions to my friend at Birch Gold and then get started investing in precious metals. Are you a few decades or years out of school and wondering, what the heck did I even learn? What exactly was the point? Well, you might think to yourself, I don't have the time to learn something new. Well, that's not true. You're not alone. It's not too late. Since 1844, Hillsdale College has been providing education in faith, freedom, and character. They've taken some of the core classes they teach on campus and made them available for free online for anyone who wants to learn. That is correct. Absolutely free. There are 39 free courses to choose from, ranging from the U.S. Constitution and the Book of Genesis to free market economics. They're easy to follow. They're self-paced. You can start whenever you want. In fact, you can start right now. It's everything you need all in one place. No long-term commitment. Let Hillsdale College be your guide. Learn when and where you want. Head on over to hillsdale.edu/Shapiro to enroll. There's no cost. It is very easy to get started. Again, that's hillsdale.edu/Shapiro to enroll. Hillsdale.edu/Shapiro. Hillsdale College has been a premier educational institution in this country, a reliable voice for traditional viewpoints and classics for literally decades. I mean, I remember subscribing to Hillsdale's Imprimis back when I was, a teenager. Hillsdale.edu/Shapiro to enroll today. This presumably is why Zelensky is talking about climate change. Here was Zelensky lecturing the world about climate change, which again is super weird.
Even though humanity is failing on its climate policy objectives, this means that extreme weather will still impact the normal global life, and some evil state will also weaponize its outcomes.
What in the world is he jabbering about? Why is he even talking? Well, the reason he's talking about this is because this is the admission price. You know any part of the club? The admission price is you talk about their favorite issues. He did it more. He talked about how people were going to use climate as a weapon. Thank God people haven't learned to use climate as a weapon, says Volodymyr Zelensky. What the hell does this have to do with the price of a missile in Ukraine?
The artificial intelligence could be trained to combat well before it would learn to help the humanity. Thank God people have not yet learned to use climate as a weapon.
I mean, presumably, this is also the reason why Ukraine is now trotting out a spokesperson for the military who is a transgender woman. I'm not kidding you. Okay, now, same-sex marriage in Ukraine is not legal, okay? Ukraine is not a left-wing country. The simple fact of the matter is that it is a culturally right-wing country. In a 2010 European study, for example, only 28% of Ukrainians polled believe that LGBTQ individuals should live freely and however they like. That was the lowest number of all European countries polled, except for Russia. Russia's the only other one that has lower numbers. The notion that this is like a wildly left-wing place is ridiculous. It is not a wildly left-wing place by any stretch of the imagination. But they understand that if they want buy-in from the left, they're going to have to pretend that they're a left-wing place. Presumably, this is why they are currently trotting out Sarah Ashton Cirillo, a trans woman from Nevada who came to Ukraine in March 2022 and has now become a spokesperson for the country's territorial defense force. Last week, according to France 24, Russian television showed an hour-long special calling Ashton Cirillo a terrible disgrace to the Ukrainian people and a monster. 19 months in, she's a junior sergeant and hosts live YouTube shows, says France 24, from her studio called Ukraine in the Know and Russia Hates the Truth. Ashton Cirillo does not even speak Ukrainian. Her role includes monitoring international media. By the way, these are obviously France 24's pronouns. In August, she announced a boycott of CNN after they called foreign fighters in Ukraine mercenaries. Okay, so this is what Ukraine is doing. Ukraine, as a propaganda ploy, is playing to the left, which is what they have to do because the United States has now established a baseline standard, which is mirror the priorities of the left, or you will be excised, or at least you'll be at risk of being excised. Are you tired of the lies and the twists of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.